Now this is Zombie Wolf at the schoolhouse.
And my son, who was around 17, and his friend, who was around 17, and I had driven to Wyoming, and we wanted to go to Adobe Town. Adobe Town is an area in south central Wyoming, which is virtually uninhabited, untouched. It's probably 30 or 40 miles across, and its chief feature is a ring of cliffs, which is filled with geological oddities. It's kind of a Badlands area. Big blocks of stone on top of pillars of stone. So we drove off 80 in the other direction, and it was maybe 25 miles down, and eventually we were on a straight stretch of road headed for the upper edge of these cliffs, and we hit something which wasn't really even visible. I don't know exactly what it was, but it was as though we'd hit a speed bump at 35 miles an hour, and it just went bang, bang. But we were in a rented car. We had I believe it was a Dodge Durango four-wheel drive with big old, like almost off-road looking tires, which is what we had wanted. And, we knew we should have that, and we did. And we had, God knows, like 12 gallons of water and a few other things. We had cell phones, but it was very early cell phone days, and connectivity was always an issue. And once you were 30 miles off the interstate, you pretty much didn't have it. So we kept going. Everything was fine. The car was fine. We get to the cliff edge, and they put on the soundtrack from, I think it was a Star Wars movie. And we descended on this gravel road, and we started driving along. And down there, the road was barely like a trace of tire treads on the ground. We drove about a mile or two, very carefully, and amazed, looking at this amazing scenery. And somebody noticed there was this like rhythmic sound, like tick, 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 tick. And it was like, we all said, yeah, what is that? So we stopped, and we got out, and the two front tires were leaking. You could hear them hissing. It's just like when we were sitting there, obviously when we were moving, we got the rhythm to it, but you could just hear them loud, clear as day, and they're hissing. Both front tires, but they're not looking flat yet. So it's like, okay, get back in the car. We turn around, we drive to the edge of the cliffs, and we get up the hill, and we go down the road where no doubt we blew out both front tires, and we'd actually depoted some water up there. And we get there and we stop, and the tires are like just starting to get soft. So we go to see about the spare, right? There's a spare. And when we go to get the spare, we realize that one of the back tires is also hissing. And we decided, like, these tires still have some air in them. And we're about 25 miles from the interstate. So we forged on and got 5 miles, and you could start to hear the tire. It was getting really rough sounding, and I had my window down, and I put my head out to look at it, and the tire was getting really flat. And the passenger side was not much better, and kept going. After about 5 more miles, the tire went completely flat. But we were still moving. We were doing maybe 5 miles, 10 miles an hour, and it was hanging on. It was going blah, 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 blah. But, it's still between the ground and the rim. And we kept going. We eventually, after about 5 more miles, which took another hour, it tore off, right? So I'm on the rim. I'm like, okay, we're done, I think. I'm not even sure it would make it on the rim. We're on kind of a dusty gravel road. And yet we were like where we could see them a half a mile ahead of us was the railroad track that we'd cross. And we knew we were like 5 miles from the highway. And off in the distance, you could see like these silhouettes of these little trailers we'd passed. Now, this was also the 4th of July. And it was getting dark, so it was probably around 8 o'clock on the 4th of July. And most people are kind of busy then, but I got out my cell phone and I tried to call AAA, and I couldn't get through because there was not a good enough signal. And my son's friend had a cell phone. He managed to get a hold of AAA. I'm talking to AAA, and the first thing they ask me is, "Are you in a safe place?" And I guess they usually get yes, because I looked around and I said, "No, definitely not. We're in the desert." It's a desert out there, that's true. And so she was like, "Oh, right, where are you?" Well, I'll try to describe it to you. It's like exit so and so, and then you go south. It's a gravel road. You go for about 5 or 10 miles. We're there. And you know what? Like an hour later, this guy in a flatbed trailer shows up, and he puts the van or the Durango on the back of the flatbed, and he gets the three of us in the front of the truck with him, and he drives us back to our motel and drops the car off at a mechanic in town. And on the way, he was texting, and I didn't know what texting was. But he kept running off the road. He kept going off onto the shoulder and not noticing that on Interstate 80 heading west. But we made it back just in time that we saw the end of a fireworks show from our motel room. And that was just as sweet as could be, because we wouldn't have died out there. It might have been kind of fun, actually, looking back. But